Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now, your host, Jackson Mummy, owner of the Celebration Bar Review.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode 174 of the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. This is your host, Jackson Mummy. Really glad that you're with us today. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving, restful, good time. Nobody brought their bar review books to the table, right? I just want to make sure, because man, that'll get you in a lot of trouble with mama. So I hope everybody is doing well. If this is your first time with us on the podcast, welcome. We're really glad to have you here. You can get this podcast and all of our podcasts one of two different ways. You can listen in an audio format by going to Apple iTunes or by iHeartRadio's format, or you can get the video version of this episode by going to celebrationbarreview.com/174. That's 174. And you can find the video of today's episode and our interview, all of the information and the show notes right there. Now, if you are just coming to our podcast for the first time, we want to let you know that we've got an archive of every episode, and you can find it on our website at celebrationbarreview.com. Click on the link at the top of the page for podcasts. You'll see all the episodes and show notes, and we invite you to check those out. There's a wealth of information there. We've been doing this show now for about 3 years, so there's lots going on and lots that we've shared during that period of time, so I hope you'll check that out. Well, today's episode is just it's a hoot. It's a great interview with a guy by the name of Randy Delling. Randy was a repeat California bar taker. He had taken all of the big box courses before he came to us. As you'll hear him say, he tried to do something different every time he took the exam. And finally, he worked his way over to us. And in July of 2017, he took our course. He used PhotoReading. He used our proprietary writing style. And you'll hear Randy in this interview talk about the fact that his highest score ever prior to July had been 1370. And on this exam, he passed. So a 70-point or greater increase in one exam. It's just absolutely amazing. And what you'll also discover is Randy is in his mid or late 60s. He's a retired Army sergeant, a retired classroom teacher, a retired high school principal in the LA Unified School District, and he's a surfer. He's quite a guy, and it's an amazing story of what he did and how he did it. And I really love sharing these kinds of stories because, truthfully, there are more and more trolls out there, the haters who just want to say, nobody ever passes the bar, and nobody can do anything, and why is this course, Celebration Bar Review, claiming that it's better than everybody else? And, I know somebody over in, wherever, and they took it 20 years ago and they didn't pass. Really? And I love being able to tell stories like Randy's because there's such a clear contradiction and refutation of that kind of silliness that's out there. And I don't think anything beats hearing from a passing bar taker what they did, how they did it, and how it compares. And so if you're one of those people, the majority of people actually, who took the Cal Bar and did not pass, then I think you're going to find great inspiration and hope and direction from Randy's comments, and I really encourage you to stick around for this. Now, if you didn't take the Cal Bar, I still think there's an awful lot to learn from Randy's comments. He's going to talk a lot about photo reading, something that we strongly suggest for all of our students. And in fact, this coming weekend, after this episode comes out, I'll be teaching a live 2-day boot camp here in Celebration for how to use photo reading on the bar exam. So I'm really excited about that. It should be a lot of fun. We've got about 30 people coming from around the country to attend. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do this on a regular basis. So look for some exciting information about that when we're all done this weekend. But in any event, Randy will talk about photo reading, how he used it. He'll also talk about his study approach, how he approached the writing of the essays, in particular how he took the multi-state, what he did differently, in his view, to have that massive jump and success. So I really encourage you to stick around for that interview. Now, before we jump into the interview with Randy, I also want to invite all of you who are taking the bar exam in 2018 to join us on Thursday night or Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern for a special live webinar, How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. This is a look at the powerful, proven way to pass. And we'll be exploring case studies like Randy's. We'll take a step-by-step examination of what you need to do to be successful in any jurisdiction to pass the bar. Now, we've had thousands of people go through this free webinar, and it's been an incredible help to them, and it can be for you too. It's completely free, but you do need to register in advance, and you can register in one of two ways. You can go to our website at celebrationbarreview.com, click on the button to claim your free seat, and then select the date that works for you. Thursday, November 30th, Monday, December 3rd, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time. You can also, if you're watching this on video, just scroll down this page and you'll see the link right here on this page, and you can enroll there as well. Now, we do recognize that there are going to be some of you for whom Monday and Thursday nights might not work, or that particular time of the day isn't best. So there's a third option that you'll see on the page to register when you click on register now, and that's an on-demand video version of the same information. You can select that, watch it at your own convenience right away if you don't want to wait until Thursday or Monday. So you've got several different ways to consume this material, and I hope you'll check it out. Great information, great opportunities to get started, and of course this is the time to get going on the February 2018 and July 2018 exams. We've now finished all the results out of July 2017. We've turned the corner. Our focus now is on February 2018. And so that's where we're going to be looking as we go forward in these podcast episodes. Well, I don't want to keep you waiting any longer. The interview with Randy was a lot of fun. I think you're going to really enjoy hearing from him. So let's talk to a successful California bar taker, Randy Delling. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hanging Out with a Successful Bar Exam Taker. This is going to be fun. I just said before we started, I can't wait to do this interview. And with me today is a successful California bar exam taker. Yes, you heard that right. And his name is Randy Delling. Hey Randy, how are you?
I'm great.
Yeah, I bet you are. I bet you are. Now, you and I talked a whole lot of times while you were studying. I never saw you in a suit and tie, so I am really impressed today. You're looking very sharp. Must be that new being a member of the bar thing, right?
I wanted to look lawyerly, yes.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot to talk about today because you used a lot of the tools and techniques that we teach. You came to us having already taken the exam unsuccessfully, and I want to kind of walk through that story. You've been kind enough to share with me, and now I'm asking you to share it with our audience. But the reason I want to do it is because I think you are a great example of what can happen even under tough circumstances. In addition to being really one of my favorite students, frankly, from the July exam. So let's kind of start back at the beginning. Why don't you share with the audience today how you came to be in a position to take the Cal Bar originally?
Okay, well, I was a high school principal in Los Angeles Unified, and, that's a very busy job. And I went to law school in my last 4 years as a high school principal. So in my view, my law education, while I respect it and think it was very good, it had the limitations of the time that I had to put into it. So I came into the bar exam right away, I believed, in a deficit with quite a bit to learn, and especially about the bar exam itself. But that didn't stop me. As you know, I'm pretty fearless, probably because I don't know any better, but I just signed up to take the exam, and I started right away with Kaplan. And I went through the entire Kaplan program, and I was not successful the first time. So then, Kaplan's free second time, went through Kaplan again, raised my score, but not successful. So then the third time, I hired what I call a fire and brimstone coach, pretty much like a drill sergeant, who was very much Iraq, which my school was Iraq, and so was Kaplan, and so is Barbary. In this one, I vowed to do something different every single time, so I did Barbary, and I went through the entire Barbary program, which was heavily Iraq. I really wasn't having that much trouble with the MBE, but my writing was not ever accepted in law school at all. My professors never liked my writing. And obviously, the first 3 times I took the bar, the graders didn't like my writing either, because that's where I suffered. All 3 times by studying, I did improve my knowledge. I did improve my ability to recall the law, but I did not improve my writing. I improved my scores overall because the MBE kept going up, and the third time the MBE went up dramatically, and that's what the Fire and Brimstone coach did for me, really increased my MBE. So then in the idea of doing something different every time, trying to adhere to Einstein's theory of insanity, right? Doing something over and over again and expecting a different result, I always have done something different since the second time. And so I found Celebration. Actually, Monique, my girlfriend, found Celebration, and it looked good to me. And so I signed up because I liked the approach. I liked what was being said. It was very much in line with the brain research that all educators know about, and it was also very much in line with just general education, period. And so I signed up, and then we changed now from IRAC to
FLA, yeah.
FLA, and as you remember, that was an extremely difficult transition for me, even though it fits my style of looking at these things much, much better. And now I'm so happy that I did do that, because during this final exam that I took, I was able to adhere to the FLA style, fact, law, analysis, all the way through, and here I am, successful, finally. It's just a much better way to write. And then also the component in Celebration of what is good writing. I think that was really important at the end, where we went into that mode of let's talk about what good writing is in general. And that turned on a bunch of lights in my head, along with the FLA style and my very joyous abandonment of IRAC in favor of FLA. And I'm so happy that it was successful, and I actually deem it to be the main reason. I don't think I did that much better on the MBE the fourth time. We'll never know, of course, but I did an extraordinary job on the MBE in the third test. And when we were practicing with your materials, I got 165 correct on the practice test. So that's a monster score on the MBE. And if I did that, I will say, as the email I sent to you right after the test, this MBE seemed to me to be the most difficult one of all. And it actually made me angry for a while. During the test, I had to walk out in the afternoon session twice just to calm myself down, so that I wasn't distracted anymore by that anger. It was extremely distracting, because I found all of the problems to be very difficult. There weren't any easy fluff problems in this exam from my point of view. Sometimes you'll have 10 really tough ones, and then you'll have 3, really easy ones where you already know the answer when you read the first sentence, This exam, in my view, was not like that, even though I was monstrously prepared. The best prepared I've ever been.
Yeah, and we're going to dig a little deeper into that in just a minute. But one thing I think to keep in mind for our audience, if you don't know, the pass rate for repeat bar takers in California in July 2017 was 28%. When you get up to a third, fourth, fifth try, statistically, you've got about a 5% chance of passing. Right. So one of the things that you did, Randy, that I thought was so wise was to recognize that continuing to do the same thing over and over again wasn't going to change your result in any meaningful way. Now, there's a huge bias in favor of using issue spotting and IRAC style writing. And, there are a lot of haters out there, a lot of trolls that say, oh, if you don't do that, you can't pass. Well, I love it when we get to talk to somebody who can say, no, actually, that's not true. You did the FLA style. You used the making arguments rather than trying to recite rules and law. And it gave you a better sense of the problems, better opportunity to write. And certainly in practice, your writing was more than sufficient. And as it turns out on the exam, it was as well. So that's got to be a good feeling for you, is just sort of knowing, I could modify and change. From your experience in education, that how people learn is pretty important, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so Yeah, and you and I spent a long time in our conferences. You were in our personal coaching program, and we spent a lot of time during those conferences talking about the process of learning. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like when you've been learning how to do something for a few years and you're kind of locked into that, how you make that shift in your thinking to do new things, and what kind of things you had to do internally to make that happen?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to be open to the idea of listening to others. You have to listen to all kinds of things. One of the first things I saw was your video about the 5 different groups that'll never pass the bar. And knowing that I was actually in 3 of those groups while I was going through law school, that pointed out to me, you better open up your mind and open up what you're hearing, because you're in 3 of these groups. You're no longer in them because you're retired now and you have some advantages, but it definitely had an effect, a negative effect in my view, on my performance on the bar exam. To be in those groups, the reasoning for those groups that you have was very true to me. I also have to say that the Extra Mile Study Group is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
There was that young lady from Florida who was already an attorney.
Right.
And in that group, she said, when we were talking about changing from IRAC to FLA, she said, yes, when I go into court, the judge just wants us to do facts, law, and analysis. That's it. They're not sitting there going, what are the issues? They want to know what the facts are. And that had a profound effect on my thinking right there, which is part of the listening, right? Listening to others.
Yeah,
because I'm 65, I'll be 66 in 2 weeks. And what is she, 27? And she's already an attorney, but it's never mattered to me. I've always found that my students teach me as much as I teach them, right? And so listening to all the people struggling in the support group brought my thinking around, allowed me to listen more and, keep an open mind, because what I was doing obviously wasn't going to work. And I have to tell you, quite honestly, I've never liked the IRAC style. It's just not my style, period. Yeah. I'm not Chemerinsky. It's not going to be that way. I don't have the total recall that gentleman has. I totally respect him for it, but that's not my style. And when you get back to the modalities of learning, right, that's not my modality, period.
Right. And I think it's important to recognize that. And I think, for those of you that don't know, part of what Randy's talking about here is that we have a Facebook group called The Extra Mile for our registered students, and we offer group coaching calls and opportunities to support. And I know you're still on the group as a now successful bar taker, as many of our past students are, which is an incredible resource, and we're very grateful for you being there and others being in that situation. So that's really a big deal to get that assistance as well as the work we're doing. Now, you mentioned being open-minded, and one of the things that you did that was very open-minded in this particular situation was to incorporate the use of photo reading. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I was just talking with Monique on our walk this morning about how I walk around now with all of these little minute details that are really helpful on a bar exam that I never would have retained before. I was extremely skeptical of photo reading. I didn't even start it until almost the very end of our study, but it became so unbelievably effective for me right away, especially during the training when we finally got to, I think, the 5th day, and we did that dictionary exercise, and I was able to actually pinpoint where all of these words were out of the dictionary on the page, on the correct page. It just was amazing. And then I just blew through so much materials, because I'm the kind of guy, as a principal, as a teacher, as an assistant principal, I've always believed in getting your students what they need. And so I was able to, because I have lots of resources, buy all sorts of stuff. Like I said, I bought Kaplan, I bought Barbary, I bought Celebration, I bought, during law school, so many supplementary materials. It was insane to help me understand what my textbooks couldn't really get across to me. I had wide access to other resources. And so I think that's an important piece of this, in that when I started photo reading all of that stuff, holy smoke, did my knowledge that I'm retaining and able and have access to, right? That's the main thing. You photo read, and then when you're finished, you relax and you say, I will have access to all this information. Well, guess what? I did. Because when I got into that test, like I wrote to you in that email right after the test, the stuff was just flying off my fingers. Whereas before, I was in a total panic. The first 3 bar exams on almost every single thing, I was like, oh my God, how do I start this? Oh my God, what am I going to say? Oh my God, what's the law? Oh my God, what are even the issues? I don't even remember what these are. But with this, the facts are right in front of you. It's kind of like, I was really strong on the PTs, right? Mm-hmm. Because the facts are right there. The law is right there. I don't have to make anything up. Well, now, all of a sudden, because of photo reading, I don't have to make anything up. It's just flying literally off my fingers. And, I was a typing teacher and a computer teacher, so that's 115 words a minute, just flying right off my fingers. Not even having to think, because I had total access to all the information. And I didn't just read the Barbary stuff, and I didn't just read the Kaplan stuff and just the Celebration stuff. I read all the stuff, everything. Yeah. You know what I mean? So even you
could not have done with traditional reading. It would have been impossible, right?
It would have been impossible to put all that knowledge in. And so now I walk around all the time with these little minute details that I'm telling you, I never could have retained. And now even today, I'm still retaining it. I mean, in one of the extra mile study groups, they asked me how I was doing. And it was toward the end of our study, and I said, well, compared to what I did before, I feel like I've been on vacation. This is a very steady, right along with the brain research. And what I mean by that is that the brain research tells us that if you take things in little chunks and then go take breaks, and then come back in little chunks and go take breaks, that you retain much more than you do trying to cram or stay up all night and do it all at once. It's just not an effective way to learn. That's not the way our brains learn. And so this program is all about that. You even told me after one of my when I finally wrote a successful essay for you, you said, okay, go do something nice for yourself now. And I took my paddleboard out and went paddleboarding in the harbor,
Yeah, just to get this clear, folks, a 65-year-old guy goes out and he paddleboards in the harbor in Southern California. I mean, really? Okay. So,
I'm going wakeboarding Saturday. So
okay, well, even better, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand that at all. Perfectly good water, perfectly good sharks. I think that what photo reading seemed to do for you was to give you a burst of confidence. As you say, you started relatively late into your studies using photo reading, but you saw almost immediately the improvement. You started getting a lot of your practice MBEs correct. Even though you had a really good base in MBE, you were getting just extraordinary results, really. You recall that. And then in the writing, it was exactly what you described. You were able to start putting so much more on the paper that really was germane to the problem. And I saw your essays kind of expanding into a much stronger, more fluent piece of writing. So photo reading is a tool that's helpful on every part of the exam. Would you agree?
I would agree, absolutely. And I would also say that I know I'm highly confident that photo reading is going to be extremely helpful to me in practice also.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the do-all, end-all, but it is very, very good, and it allows you to retain much more information. Part of that is because you actually spend more time with the text, but you spend the time with the text in a different way that I feel is much more effective, especially when it comes to retention and especially when it comes to recall.
Yeah, and I think your point about stepped repetition versus memorization, as an educator, that when you ask people to memorize, it's very short term and it's very minimal gain. But when someone's repeating material and adding new material and repeating and adding, they come to know it and have ownership of the material. And that's right. Where you see the biggest differences. So, I think it was really for me, it was a lot of fun to work with another teacher because you got that. I mean, I didn't have to explain it to you. It was like, yeah, I got this. I understand what you're talking about. That's spaced repetition. Holy moly, I love it. The guy can speak my language. So,
and I used to cool. Always in the first day with my students for all the 12 years that I was actually a teacher, the first day I did a stepped memory exercise with them where I would show them a complex drawing for a whole minute and have them draw it, and then I would show them a similar complex drawing for 6 seconds at a time and have them draw it 10 times. And, you know, inevitably, the first one that you draw is lacking and the last one that you draw is almost complete. Yeah. And so it's a very clear demonstration of not only how your program works, because your program works that way, but also how photo reading works once you do the skittering and the, you know, other
the activation techniques. That's right.
The activation techniques that go along with photo reading. So, for me, it was extremely effective. I would highly recommend it, and I would believe that anybody that it was not successful for probably wasn't really following the training the way they ought to. You know, it really. Here I am. That's all I can say. Here I am, and I attribute it not only to the stepped learning process in Celebration Bar Review that you talk about immediately for people that start off, but also for photo reading. It's very much that way because you don't just photo read. You know, the next thing you do is, you know, relax and tell your mind to make it available to you, and then you go into the, you know, other types of activation activities like you said.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, unfortunately, there are people that are sort of in the Flat Earth Society, and they're going to stand on the shore and say, you got to issue spot and memorize, and then they keep taking the exam and keep failing the exam. And it's really sad to see that happen. And that's why I wanted you to be able to share your story, because it's so counter to all of that I think people can say, oh, wow, you know, not so much if this guy can do it, because you've got quite a background. I mean, you were a Marine. You haven't even talked about that. You're a surfer. You're a former principal. You're an educator. You went to law school. I mean, you've been a successful guy. It had to be hard on you to take the bar, after all those successes, to take the bar and not be successful. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that felt at that point in your life?
Yeah, you know, I'm most of the time a positive person. As you well know, there are moments like when they didn't change the score for California. You know, I was down in the dumps for a moment there. Yeah. When I didn't pass the bar exam all 3 times, I was down in the dumps for a moment there. And that's literally what it takes. Monique will tell you, anything that gets me down in the dumps is literally for one moment. That's all it takes. And then the next thing I did, literally 5 minutes after I found out I didn't pass each time, got on the bar website, signed up for the next exam, and went looking for my next change to get prepared. I always looked at this as, okay, it's devastating that you didn't pass. It's crushing. No more so than crushing in law school when I went, you know, to college for 30 straight years. I was a college student for 30 years to get to where I am. Right. For 26 of those years, I was a 4.0 plus student, straight A's on everything. Then I start law school. For the first 3 months in law school, I failed every single thing. Everything was an F. There's a jaw dropper for you. Yeah. Like, whoa, what the? And I'm going to really have to step it up. Yeah. And so that was my whole mindset for the whole 6 years, 4 years of law school and 2 years on the bar exam. It was always, and as you know, I always said, well, it's not the bar examiners, it's not the bar exam, it's me. Right. It's my education is lacking. I was too busy to really get it, and I need to improve. And so I'm going to set about the work of improving. And that was always my mindset. So yes, it's devastating to hear you didn't pass, and I understand that. And I'm unique in that devastation never lasts very long for me, literally not much more than a moment, because it's not productive and it doesn't feel good. Right. And so the next thing I always say is, okay, what do I have to do?
Right, you're an action
what
guy.
What do I have to do to stomp this into the ground?
Right. I love that. You were on the phone with me like the day the results came out. Like, boom, okay, we're ready to roll. Well, Well, let's talk for a minute about this change in the cut score, because it was really hard on you, and it's a big deal. For those that don't know, the cut score is the passing score, and in California, that score is 1440, which would be a 144 on the multi-state, 144 written if you're trying to equate it. So the second highest cut score in the country after Delaware, who knows why, but clearly the one with the most impact. And there was a proposal before the bar and the state Supreme Court to lower the cut score. I had anticipated they would not do that. It turned out, unfortunately, I was right. They decided not to do it. The state Supreme Court said nope. And you got that information, and it was hard for you. Results had not yet come out. We just knew that instead of 1440, instead of maybe a 1400, or they coming up with some weird number like 1413 or something, but it was going to still be at 1440. So what did that feel like for you? What was that response, at that moment for you?
Well, I felt, since the MBE was the toughest of the four that I had taken, I really at that point felt, okay, look, realistically, you've never really scored over 1375. You never really even got into the second read. And so, statistically, you didn't pass. You just might as well face it. And since all my friends and everybody's been asking me for years, have you passed yet? And I have potential clients, literally hundreds of them, that call me all the time. Did you pass yet? Did you pass yet? It was devastating. And I thought, okay, you're going to be taking the February exam, start getting ready. And, I wrote you and said, should I start getting ready?
And what did I say?
And you wrote back and said, hang on, here's what this is what it's going to cost you to do that. And, hang on. And I replied with, well, I know what needs to be done. Right. And so I actually did start back in.
I know you did.
Because I have all the materials, right?
Right.
I've got everything I need. And I just didn't spend any money this time because I had everything. But I did feel that I needed to brush up a little bit. And, that's how I felt. So it was really, and I have to say that I was surprised that I passed. It was a surprise. I told everybody
To you, it was a surprise.
Yes, to me, it was a surprise. I told everybody at the beginning, before I even took it, I'm not making any guarantees. I've already not been successful 3 times. I know what that's like. And it's very possible that I was not successful this time. So, I was surprised, but I was pleasantly surprised that I passed. And I think really the reasons for it have to do with continued improvement on the MBE and massive improvement from IRAC to FLA, period. FLA is a much better style. And for anybody who's doubtful, I challenge you to go into the bar site itself, look at the passing answers, as many of them as you can, and look for the FLA style, because it's there.
Yeah, it's there.
A lot.
Yeah.
You don't see as I recognized it. We talked about it, right? This is one of your guys. I can tell. This is one of your guys, successful. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised, but I would be pleasantly surprised again to see one of my essays up there for this exam.
Yeah, I think it could be. I honestly think it could be. And to get the scope of this, again, for our audience, what Randy's saying is he didn't make a second read in any of those 3 tries. His score went up by at least 70 points.
That's correct. Yes.
That's a jaw dropper.
I already had a 1470 on the MBE.
Right. So it had to. I was like, oh man.
Or 1370 or something like that.
Right. Okay. So so when you think about a 70-point jump, you're like, huh? Now I thought you were going to pass, and that's why I hung back. I felt like you had been doing the work and you knew it, and yet I know that this wait in California is so incredibly long. It's the last jurisdiction to come out with results. It just draws out and drags out and drags out. And so here we are right before Thanksgiving, and you're just finally getting your results, and everybody else has been working for a couple months, and it's just crazy. What was it like when you saw the results? Can you just share that moment?
Well, I vowed to do something different. The last 3 times Monique and I sat here waiting for 6 o'clock to go. And right when 6 o'clock went, we put in the numbers and found out that I had failed.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. So I told Monique months ago, I'm just going to give you the numbers, and I'm going to get on my shoes and walk down to 31 Flavors and have a scoop of strawberry and a scoop of pistachio, and I'm not even going to think about it, right? And so I did that. I just left, and I wasn't even going to look. I go, when Monique finally got home, she goes, "Did you find out?" I went, "No." She goes, "Everybody's waiting to hear from you." I said, "Yes." "Well, I already went down and got my ice cream, and I'm not looking. That's what I'm doing different." So then I gave her the card, and she went over to her computer, and she brought it up, and she goes, "You passed." And I said, "Baloney, not true." She goes, "Well, look at what it says here." So I got up and I looked, and sure enough, I passed. And I have to tell you, it was such a relief that I started crying. It was just a spontaneous, I'm a big, tough guy, but I can still cry. And it was just such a relief to have passed that it brought that out, that emotional response, It didn't last a whole lot of time, just like being devastated doesn't last a whole long time. But that's what happened. That's
awesome. That's awesome.
And that was like at 9 o'clock. It was like 3 hours later. So that's why nobody got to know, because you guys were already in bed.
Yeah, it's way after my bedtime here on the East Coast.
And,
that's right.
I'm sure everybody thought that I had failed, and that's why you hadn't heard from me. But I had just vowed that every single time I was going to do something different.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did that was different.
Well, you did everything. Yeah, you did everything different this time, and it all worked for you. And I'm so pleased for you, so excited. And so many opportunities ahead for you. You've done so much in your life already. We thank you for your service as a Marine. I thank you as an educator and a parent for your work. Yeah.
Actually, I was Army, but that's
Army.
okay.
I'm so sorry. You're Army.
Don't be sorry. It's all right.
I still appreciate your service.
I have nothing against Marines. Okay?
Yeah, no, I got that. Okay, so you're in the Army. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I thank you for your service as an educator, for a teacher in the classroom, as well as being an administrator and a principal. And I think you're going to be a terrific member of the bar, because you're bringing all of those skills together: the personal touch, the desire to help people. You've been just a delight to work with, and I can see already you're helping our current crop of students and encouraging them. I mean, that's just you. That you're just that guy. You're a teacher, and so that's wonderful. Anything else you want to share with our audience today? I mean, we've gone a little bit longer, but I just thought your story was so good. I just wanted to get it all out there.
Well, I would just say that the entire program of celebration demonstrates caring, which is something that's really important. It's more about education than it is just about bar review. It also has components about your personal life and balancing, study with recreation, which is so important to the brain research about how we learn. And then, finally at the very end, going into this idea of what is good writing, which the other reviews don't do. Yeah. That's just Iraq with them. And this is FLA and what is good writing. I just think that, if you're on the fence about celebration, get off the fence and jump in. You won't be sad that you did. And compared to the other study that I did, and especially under my fire and brimstone coach that I had for the third one, Celebration Bar Review was like a vacation, and it was a successful vacation, because here I am ready to get sworn in on December 5th in Ventura.
Well, congratulations. That'll be awesome. I hope you send us a picture of that swearing in. That'll be
I will, and I'm also going to apply for the federal court in the Central District of California. So great. I'll be able to practice in the state courts and in the federal court of the Central District.
That's great.
Where need be.
Awesome. Well, listen, I know you've got a lot to be thankful for this Thanksgiving. We're thankful to have had you in the course and as a student. Very, very pleased for you, and certainly want to speak for our entire audience when I say congratulations to you again. Well, that's it for today.
And thank you to everybody at Celebration. You guys are great. Just very supportive, great education. Way to go.
Thank you very much. All right, everybody. Have a great time. We'll be back again in our next interview shortly. And again, bye-bye for now. Well, that's our interview for today, man. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Randy is quite a guy, isn't he? Great success, and we wish him all the best as he goes forward. Now, again, just a quick reminder before we sign off, our special free live webinar, How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam, will be on Thursday, November 30th and Monday, December 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. There's also an on-demand version. You can check that out by going to our website or by scrolling down this video page, clicking on the button to claim your free seat, and we'll see you at that webinar. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. I'm looking forward to boot camp this week with my students live here in Celebration, Florida, and we'll be sharing, I'm sure, lots of information that comes out of that opportunity to spend time with those students. So to all of you who were watching today or listening, we're glad to have you with us. Thanks for being here. Thanks for telling your friends about us, and we'll see you along the extra mile and on the pass list in the very near future. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at www.celebrationbarreview.com.